I said, play fair with people. Jeepers. You know, a game is supposed to be for fun, and you don't need to be griefing anybody or causing them issues. I was looking at one of the other streamers a bit earlier today. I was assembling my new microphone, and he's got a couple guilds that he's dealing with. And good grief, I mean, his emails, nothing but issues around, you know, somebody said this bad thing to me, and somebody else ninja looted in a raid and in a dungeon rather, and you know, all these complaints that he has to deal with. And that's why I don't have a guild myself anymore, is because it's one end of problems after another. Who's giving me that heal? Oh, I don't think it was her. Blessing of Might of Pally. So we'll just thank her. Thank you. That was nice. I like the fact that people do a lot of these drive-by buffs, and makes it fun. Because as a warrior, I don't really have anything. Okay, so I kind of thought he was going to show up, but there we go. And of course, this is classic, so you have to get beaten pretty bad to get enough rage to fight back. But you can do attack, and then you have long 10-second grabs for these things. I might as well kill him because he's going to come after me either way. I'm probably going to get this one too. Maybe not. Oh, that's a bonus. I thought for sure she'd come after me. While I collect these pots of Millie's Harvest. Millie's Harvest. Ah, look at that. Now, I was not paying attention the way I should have, because I was doing other things. But as long as I don't hit both these characters, this guy has a chance to get a tag. There we go. And I'm going to cheer him for that. Molten Hammer, that's a cool name. For a dwarf, I bet he does mining and maybe blacksmithing. Oh, might as well grab her. So just to reiterate, when I had the two mobs attacking me, which was a bit of a surprise because of my own stupidity, if I had hit both of them, they both would have been tagged, and the other guy would not have gotten a kill. But because I didn't hit both of them, I only hit the one, and I saw him coming, I purposefully did not try to do damage on the second one and grab that tag. So he was able to get that kill, and if he needed a bandana, he probably got a bandana drop. So, you know, this is what I mean by playing fair, playing right by people. Do I always do the right thing? No, because I'm an idiot and I'm human, and you know, I've been doing this for a while, and sometimes my better nature doesn't take over. I default to the gaming thing, which is that's mine, not yours. But I really do advocate for playing games as fairly as you can, doing right by people, apologize when you screw up. Some of our politicians could learn that. Whether she was going to come after me or not. I see we have a lot of mouse love in the general chat. How nice. Everybody loves a mouse. I don't like mice, actually. Not if they're in your house. I've lived in the country, and I've lived in places where we had mice, and they're horrible little creatures if they're in your space. But apart from that, I have nothing against them. And of course, computer mice, what would we do without them? Look at this one, she's guarding all these things. This is not fair. I want these things. I want these buckets. But with my luck, 3 more are going to spawn on top of her before I get them. I only need... How come Oh, I guess I'm done. I don't need any. Fabulous. Now, what's the best point of getting out of here? This way, I guess. Okay. the sound problem solved, which I think I have with this particular new microphone that I have, I think we're in good shape, and I might make a bit of a highlight clip on this one, just where I'm talking about playing fair, doing right by people, because I'm old, I've done a lot, I've seen a lot. I spent 10 years in the Navy, Canadian Navy. I'm an educator. That's what I do these days, is I teach and I supervise other teachers. And so I think it's important to share those values with people, because a lot of young people really aren't getting the kind of education that they need to get anymore. They're not getting the parental supervision, and sometimes that's not the parents' fault. It's because parents have to work two incomes to make anything happen these days. And a lot of kids are left alone, and it's just the way of the world. So, you know, if I can help in any way, then that's what I'm going to do. Go back to Millie. And then I think I get, I'm level 5 now, so I think they're going to kick me out of here and send me off to Stormwind. And there's the bells of the Abbey ringing. Oh, how nice. I like the effects in this game. So there's Millie. There you go, Millie. Alrighty. Into the building. This building? Brother Niels. Okay. He's up in the tower. I don't think he's the bell ringer, but I don't think they have a bell ringer. But we'll go where we like to go. I like the Zygor guide. You do have to pay for it. It's not like Questy, which is a free add-on. Questy's very good. And you can certainly get along well with the Blizzard quest tracker. But I like Zygor because I'm old and lazy, and it gives me a lot more information, which I find makes the game more enjoyable for me. That doesn't mean you have to do it. Make your own choices in life. And do what you can do, and do what works for you. Nobody else should be dictating. You know, if you're still living at home with your parents and they're still, you know, you're not the age of majority yet, you're not technically an adult, and your parents still have some, you know, supervisory responsibilities as far as you're concerned. I won't say control over you, because if you've ever tried to control a teenager, you know that doesn't work. But if you still are beholden to them for either your upkeep or your costs or your food or the car or whatever, then you have to learn to get along and do what they want you to do. I've had my kids come back and live with me after they went out on their own as adults. And circumstances change for people, and you just have to go with the flow. And I think as a parent, you never give up that responsibility. You can try to give it up, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. Now, I don't control my kids. I don't tell them what to do. They're adults. They make their own choices. Sometimes they make not great choices, but that's up to them, and I don't rescue them. I help them if they're in trouble. I help them solve their problems, but I don't do it for them. I don't think I need to kill these people. I think I need to just go into the mine and gather stuff. I do need to kill a couple of laborers, and they're all in some of the mine. So, you know, a lot of parents have trouble letting go. They really have trouble letting their children become adults and start making their own choices, as poor as those choices might be at times. Then you know, that's how they learn. You can't protect your kids from everything. We have that responsibility as parents when the kids are little. We do have to protect them because they can't protect themselves, and they don't have the education or the experience to make a lot of decisions on their own. But as they grow older, you need to start distancing yourself a little bit, not interfering in their lives, letting them try things, letting them fail. Failure is not a bad thing. It's a learning experience, and I know people get sick of hearing that. I'm really tired of hearing people say it was a learning experience. I'm tired of learning. Well, you should never be tired of learning in principle, but yeah, it can be very tiring if all you're doing is failing, but if you're failing and you're failing and you're failing and you try different things and those don't work either, get some advice, get some education, get some mentoring. Try and find out, why are you failing? Is it because you're not thinking things through? Or is it because, you have a plan and you don't execute it properly? That can happen sometimes. So what is it that is giving you the difficulty in achieving your goals? Sometimes we just get lazy. We just have reached for a goal that's way too hard. It's too far out of reach at the time. Or we don't have the resources. Thank you for the drive-by. We get tired. Life happens. I see many students who are doing very well in school, and then something happens. They have an illness or a death in the family. They have a relationship breakup, and that brings them down because maybe they've never experienced that before, or they just get behind in their schoolwork because they made a couple of poor choices and were partying instead of studying. Lots of reasons why people can come off the rails. But the point is to then recognize that and get back on the rails. Don't just give up. When students come to me and they say, I'm so far behind in my assignment that I'm going to fail, then yeah, maybe they are going to fail, but I try to help them develop a plan to get back on track. So, okay, you haven't handed in the last 5 assignments. The chances of catching up now, especially if there are late penalties of handing in assignments, that's going to be really tricky. But if you don't try, then that's just giving up. And you never know, you might be able to salvage something. And if you actually do the work and show up in class, you can probably pull a pass out of what might have been failure. And that's incredibly empowering. When you see you're on the road to a very bad outcome, regroup, step back, reassess, change your methodology, start doing something differently. Maybe you need to just give yourself a kick in the butt and say, okay, you messed around for the last 2 months. We're starting to get toward a new semester, and if you end up this one with not good grades, or you fail a course, you have to take that course again. It doesn't mean you give up on your plans. You don't give up on everything. You don't say, I'm not cut out for school, and have this terrible meltdown. Have a meltdown if you need to. Just take a day and go, what have I done? I'm so stupid, and get over it. And if you can't get over it, get some help. Talk to your professor or your teacher. Talk to them. Talk to somebody else. Talk to a counselor. Most schools have counseling. Sometimes it's not great counseling, but it's better than nothing. You don't have to take every piece of advice that you get, least of all from me, for heaven's sakes. But expand your horizons, gather information, put it all into that very intelligent brain that you have, and sort it out. Think about it. Think about what is viable for you, and start your path to recovery. I've seen a lot of people in some very ugly situations, and giving up is just not an option. It is an option, but it's the worst option. And don't choose that option. Let me tell you that. Never choose that giving up option. Because it's, the people that I've seen in prison, I've worked with people in prisons, and I didn't work I wasn't in prison except as an employee of the prison, and I've worked with people who found themselves in prison, and usually it's a series of bad choices over and over and over again, and instead of learning from that experience and trying something better, they took the easiest route. They took the path of least resistance. They hung out with the wrong people. They knew these people were not good to hang out with, but they did anyway because they were lonely and they needed friends. There's lots of reasons why we make bad choices from time to time. But if you're continuing to make bad choices, get a grip. Like, wake the heck up. Because then you end up in prison. And what prison does, apart from being a brutal place to be, it severely limits your ability to make choices. You don't have choices about what you're going to wear that day or what you're going to eat or where you're going to go. Those choices are made for you. And so you don't want to be in that situation where you have no control over your own life. You want to be able to control your life and do the things that you want to do. Square Dance Revolution? Is that what that is? Dance Revolution. Oh, Square Dance Revolution sounded a whole lot better. I think that would have been a better guild name, but yeah, I get it. Dance. So anyway, that's my riff on two things in this particular stream. One is playing fair and being good to people and doing the right thing, which is more than one thing, I suppose, but that's one particular aspect of life. And the other is don't give up. Get yourself under control. Even if you're 12 or 13, you can still make choices. You may have to consult with your parents or other people, your teachers or whoever else is, has some responsibility for your life, but you can make your own choices.